Welcome back to our Board of County Commission meeting. Mr. Abate, Department Number 5, discussion of reversible 9-hole golf course at the Sailfish Sands. Mr. Abate, I'm actually looking forward to understanding what you all are talking about irrigating a 9-hole. You got to irrigate it whether you're going one way or the other way. So this is one item I don't necessarily understand. So.
Kevin Abate, Parks and Recreation Director. Before we get started, I do want to just kind of give you kind of a state of the golf course where we are today. As you know, this board unanimously voted to implement a pretty aggressive plan to put the golf course on the map of the sport of golf in this county. And, we've been, over the last few years, we've been very, very successful. To kind of take you back down memory lane a little bit, the golf course was established in 1925, so we'll hit our 100 years next year. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, we came up with a program, and at that time in our fiscal year 21, our budgeted subsidy for that golf course, our tax subsidy was $763,000, and it was growing. And as a matter of fact, when we went into construction, it grew up more than that, over to $1 million. So since then, we've implemented all the strategies and programs, from the hitting bays to the restaurant to the reversible 9 to the technology at the driving range. Just this past year, we've had some great successes. We hit 2.3 million golf balls at the driving range and hitting bays, excluding the months of June, July, and August when we were closed. And to date, we've sold almost 600 summer members, which is something new we implemented last year. And I'm happy to report, too, that our revenue is at $2.5 million, and our net operating fiscal year-to-date revenue for the entire facility is $809,000 in net revenue. Now, we know that will go down some during the summer, but we've had some operational strategies to take maintenance in-house and reduce some costs on maintenance plans. But I do want to, again, thank you for, approving the vision of this community, and then my team, more importantly, for implementing the entire plan, and which will segue nicely into the reversible 9. And so we believe that we've met our goal, which was to grow the game of golf in the county through all generations. That was kind of our common goal through all the, I was just at the hitting bays, and there was a 2-year-old hitting on the mats today, and a bar full of people just played golf afterwards. It was wonderful to see what has happened over the last few years. So I'll get into the presentation here to talk about the reversible 9-hole golf course, some of our successes and our challenges. So you'll see this is an aerial photo of the golf course. For those in the audience that don't understand what a reversible 9-hole course is, we created something that has what I call very family-friendly tee boxes. There's 5 tee boxes per hole, and we have 11 greens. So when we flip the course, one hole's open, and we use that for other activities like short game areas. So the course is surrounded by a 13-acre driving range that's powered by Top Tracer, and then you'll see the rounds of golf are right now we're averaging about 24,000 rounds of golf, of 9-hole rounds on the 9-hole course. And of course, we've implemented the strategies of typical greens and environmentally friendly landscaping, removed all these exotics, and to kind of give you some understanding, we have 2 directions the course can be played in. You can play it in the clockwise direction or the counterclockwise direction. When we first opened up the course, we were changing the course bi-weekly. And then after the first year, it became very, very expensive because every time that you take a course and you flip it in the opposite direction, you have to take 5 tee boxes and 10 tees times 9 holes, 90 tees, move them in different directions, remove all the cups and the flags, and so it became complicated. So we went to monthly. We were getting lots of complaints about constantly flipping it because the golf cart technology wasn't precise at that time. But through the years, we got a lot better. So our goal with flipping it monthly at that time was just to, last year, before this season, was to focus on really good customer service was our goal, because we were getting lots of complaints about people getting lost and which way are we going today. So this past season, we kept the reversible 9 in the current direction, which you'll see here in the Sands Black direction. So you'll see the star here on the right-hand side of the screen. It starts at the pro shop where the carts are staged, and it loops around really nicely, kind of like it did at the last 99 years when the course has always been going in that direction. So it's a very easy route. And then throughout the last few years, we've had some lessons learned for the golf course and the Sands Black direction, which is clockwise. It's a simpler pattern for flow. It did fortunately created a new short game experience for some golfers, where you can hit a ball 70 or 80 yards in. So that was a free service that we provided over the last 4 or 5 months that the golfers really enjoyed. It does require less signage, and it created an instructional hole for the open hole behind the driving range. And then, of course, it's closer to the kart staging. And then actually, because we didn't flip it during season and with the intention of flipping it after season, we didn't get any complaints. It was nice. So the Sands Black course is a nice course. And of course, the Sands Gold course, which is counterclockwise, starts on the other side of the driving range. So it's a little further away. And then over here on the top left corner, you can kind of see it kind of goes across the green. It gets a little bit more complicated. And our golf course technology was we have to put out about additional 30 signs for some routing. And so we did that many times, of course, in the past year, but it does become a little bit more complicated. So we had some lesson learned for the Gold course. One of them is the Gold direction does provide a new experience, and that's kind of what we came up during some of the program goals when I presented to the board, as having Florida's only reversible 9-hole course. I think it's very important to always maintain the fact that we have something that we can flip when we need to, and it's super important. And it does remove, of course, a new short game area that we discovered, but it does keep a short chipping and pitching area on the open tee box in the opposite direction, the open green. I'm sorry. So again, it does require, as I said earlier, additional signage. And it, again, on holes 3, 4, and 5, and back to the other screen, it can be a little confusing, but with good signage, we believe that we can adequately manage the course. And then, of course, we believe, because we hear from customers that some folks don't like to go in the Gold direction, and some folks don't like to go in the Black direction, so there may or may not be a slight decrease in the rounds of golf. We're not too sure if that will happen. So. Concerns and considerations, obviously, labor costs every time we flip a course becomes expensive because we're replacing all the tee markers. As I said earlier, we install signage and new flags. And then flipping it often also has some concerns with liability, because some golfers will, if there's not a starter or a ranger that day, they may golf in the opposite direction if you're flipping it very often. And then limiting flipping the course does, of course, reduce complaints. And then, of course, the Gold and Black course, providing a limited schedule, I think, would be a good approach. We've heard from some of our golfers when you're going to flip it, and our intention was to flip it in May until this item. I'll have a recommendation coming up to look at doing it in June. I believe there's value in flipping it, but I believe that it should be flipped limitedly in a very limited manner. So, but overall, the reversible 9 has lived up to its expectations over the last few years in the community. So. Real simple relative to the 9-hole course, the Black course. I commit with a recommended schedule for the board to consider, so that the community will know this is how much we'd like to flip the course. Of course, we can do it more or less or not, but there is value in having a course that you can flip in both directions. So that's my short presentation. So if you have any questions on the reversible 9, I'd be happy to answer them.
End of presentation.
I thought this was about irrigation. I don't know how we got, anyway, go ahead.
So Commissioners, I will say, because we talked last meeting about bringing this presentation, and I think the way it started was, as District 2 Commissioner, I was getting a lot of calls from different constituents, golfers, residents, some of them that were saying, when are you going to flip the course? Didn't know. Two, actually, I was getting 2 phone calls. One was the monstrosity sign that we met out there that is on St. Lucie. Some neighbors are not real happy with the sign being twice as tall as their wall, but that's how it started. Then the conversation of when are you going to flip it? So I said to Mr. Abate, hey, I'm getting phone calls. When are we going to flip the course? I didn't know if we flipped it weekly, monthly, every 3 months. So he got back to me and said, okay, well, we're going to flip the course. There was no time, so I was surprised when Commissioner Hurd said we shouldn't flip the course on May 1st as directed because of irrigation concerns. And I think that there is some will by whether it be Parks Department or what have you, to not reverse it, or some golfers to not reverse it. I have heard the same things, that some people like the short game. So my whole issue was, when you say you're not going to do something, you need to come back and be transparent about it and say, we've touted this as one of a kind. We spend a lot of money on architects and design and RFPs for people to design this. So we just have to explain to the residents what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're using their tax dollars. And I don't care. I've played it a number of times, and I don't care if it's played one way or the other. I enjoy it. But I think in all transparency, it has to be discussed, and you have to say why. And I think that this was sort of a maneuver to not reverse it. And again, I take staff's recommendation, because if it didn't work out like you originally said, then by all means, maybe there's a better way to do it. Be transparent, say why you're doing it, and I think we will all be on the same page if the transparency happens.
Can somebody explain to me what irrigation has to do with this?
Nothing.
Or was I asleep at the switch last meeting?
My opinion, irrigation didn't have anything to do with it. It just, there was some deadline that I don't know what the May 1st deadline is, but the deadline was determined that it had to be flipped by May 1st, and I think that maybe staff wanted more time to talk to the commissioners about it.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I brought this up last week because I am at the golf course frequently, and I play the golf course frequently. And we are in a drought, and therefore the landscaping maintenance crews were playing the black course, so they were irrigating and feeding the black course to make it as playable as possible, because it is dry out there. And they weren't giving the same level of care to the gold course, which is perfectly understandable because no one was playing the gold course. So my impression was that it was inadvisable to switch that quickly without giving the greenskeepers, the superintendent, the opportunity to prepare the gold course to be playable. That was what the whole thing was about. It wasn't about some political maneuvering. It was about, there was a drought and the course was brown. And we were gonna, if we switched over without giving the superintendent some preparation, that we were going to lose customers and satisfaction. And we definitely don't want to lose either of those things.
So the holes that are not used going one way or the other way are not irrigated during the time of their dormancy of use?
The level of maintenance, so that everything's irrigated, but its system is a whole system. So the course is all irrigated. The level of maintenance on the fairways and greens on the open holes that were not being used are not maintained. We're not cutting the greens, for example, every day.
But irrigated?
Yeah, but we've been struggling for water for the last 90 days. So, I mean, we obviously, I think that the day of when Commissioner Hurd made the comment, actually poured 5 inches the next morning. So we got a little bit of a relief. So, but like I said, we're prepared to move the course on June the 1st. You know, we'll get some rain this week. The team will be ready, and the course will improve. The conditions of the reversible nine going in the goal direction will still improve over the next 3 or 4 months as we play.
Okay, Commissioner Schmidt.
That was sort of like the question I was going to ask. I'm just sort of confused that the black course is the gold course, or just the other way.
Correct, but there are 11 greens, and 2 are always open.
Not in use.
not in use.
Okay. Just curious why.
Because when you flip the course, the greens on the opposite times that you're flipping them become a practice facility. So we have open greens that allow for it to be reversible. You can't flip it 9 for 9. You have to have an open green available, and it was created that way and designed that way so that the ninth hole of either direction can be played for as a short game area, and that's still the case today. They can be played as a short game area.
Is in use.
Pardon me?
In use.
But not for putting. So what happens is on the current direction we're in now on 9 black, there's just dimples all over the course. So we'd have to give itself a few weeks to roll those greens and and sand them. So correct.
So I'm sure there's an obvious answer to my next question. Why don't we just maintain them all the same?
More expensive.
Well, so we do, but we don't have to. So if we have an open green or an open fairways that are not in play, we're not going to spend all our resources and time. We're going to spend all our resources and time on the actual 9 holes and fairways and bunkers that are in play. And then when we flip the course, we would focus our efforts on those 2 open greens that were not in play that will be in play.
How long does that take to get them into a?
I think it depends. I'd have to talk to our superintendent, but we gave him a few weeks. Of course, it didn't rain at all. He was out concerned about rain, but we gave him a few weeks to get ready for it for May 1st.
I think that would be. I sort of understand the logic, but at the same time, from an appearance, from a visual, I'm thinking if we're in the black with revenue, right? I wouldn't let the maintenance of something go until we switch. I think I would keep everything at a constant. That's just me, and I'm sure you have a much better explanation. And when we go see it, maybe it'll all make much more sense. But I'm just processing this by going, okay, how much more could it cost to manage 2? And in the grand scheme of the whole thing, the brilliance of this 9 hole was to eliminate 9 holes altogether, which should have shaved off a whole bunch of maintenance of the other 9 that we did away with.
Correct, and we did that when we created these waste bunkers for non-irrigation. One of the things we did, just in what you said, that we got rid of our old contractor and we took it over. We were a little upset that on one of the fairways they let go completely. They stopped mowing it. We didn't know it was happening. They just stopped mowing it. They thought, well, you're not flipping the course for another couple months, and it was pretty upsetting that they did that because we always want to be able to flip the course. We were never told them to stop doing the maintenance. So we actually had to get that back over a period of time.
And then the other thing on the water too, Kevin, I'm just trying to understand. So we are tapped into Willoughby Creek's western discharge from the school board property area, right?
Yeah, so the flow into Willoughby Creek, we're able to divert the water to the blue course if we need to.
But the black and gold, we can't?
No, the blue course is on an island, and so we are actually working on a purchase order now because our permit expires with South Florida Water Management District in 2025, and part of one of the goals of this project is to ultimately evaluate, because IQ Water is close by on Dixie Highway, whether or not we need to move to IQ Water. But we are evaluating connecting all the lakes in the courses so that we can lower the number of wells that we have on the course. So we're doing a study now with a vendor that's approved from South Florida Water Management to undertake our concerns with water.
So I didn't know that before. That's great. I was under the assumption falsely, because I just thought it. I thought it was all tied together. And if it's not, and if you need encouragement to do so, then do so, I think. Because, the idea, which I thought was brilliant from the inception of tying it into Willoughby Creek, was that we were consuming excess water we didn't want to put in the estuary anyway. And if that requires us to do something above and beyond to tie it all together and have all the lakes tied together, I'm 100% supportive of that.
It is a board goal to evaluate IQ Water. there was a plan that's about 10 years old that the city of Stewart presented to us on that, and whether or not we're going to go that route or we're going to just use water, because the water from the STA just can't fully support water in the golf course. It does assist, but having water from rainfall or down at our deep wells in the aquifer, and the combination of what we can and can't do will be dictated probably by the state based on our consumptive use permit.
Again, that's something that I think as a board, if it requires something extraordinary with the district or some conversation for us to have, now knowing that, I would certainly have that conversation with Mr. Bartlett. Like, we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to consume water we don't want to put in the estuary. Give us the flexibility to do as much as possible, I think.
That process is starting now.
Thank you.
I honestly thought when we were sold this, that was the whole concept of us using Willoughby Creek potentially polluted water for irrigation water that actually brought in nitrogen that we wouldn't have to fertilize on the, I mean, the whole thing. And if now we're saying this new part of the golf course isn't even connected to that, is troublesome, because that,
So Willoughby Creek was obviously created much long after the Blue Course was designed. There just happened to be a transfer pipe, if you will, gravity fed to one of the lakes on the Blue Course. And when the Willoughby Creek was built and designed, we realized it was there. We were able to close one of the weirs off with plywood and direct the water back to the course during these times of years when we need it. And so we're able to use that stormwater runoff to irrigate the Blue Course.
the other troublesome statement for me, being in the business, not necessarily golf course maintenance business, but being in the landscape maintenance business, is the idea of being able to, just because a particular area is not being used by the client, that we're going to somehow do less of a standard level of maintenance. I've found that to be catastrophic in my business. I've watched my competitors go down because of that. I cannot wrap my head around that. So that is something that we're going to have to agree to disagree on. But anyway, Commissioner Hurd.
We agree. That's why we got rid of our maintenance people and took it over. And it's looking much, much better.
But I think also, too, because what I didn't hear in all of this was that from a policy perspective, take care of it all year long, all of it. I think that's what Harold just said. Like,
Absolutely.
whatever was the transition between whether it was the contractor or us just saying we have two holes that aren't going to be used as much, just maintain it all the same, I think.
Well, also the consumptive use permit that we have now is an old one. It was that permit was issued before the golf course was redesigned.
Correct.
So that's another thing that we're fixing.
Correct. It was based on 36 holes of irrigated water, and we don't have that anymore, so.
So where are we going with this? What do we want to provide staff direction on recommendation schedule for the reversible 9? Oh, I'm sorry. I see a light here. Commissioner Smith.
A motion of some sort?
So really, what I wanted to do today was really get some direction. I know that, listen, the reversible 9, of course, has merit. I believe we need to flip it minimally at least once a year. I kind of went to the points of the troubles of when we financially, what it costs to flip it. My goal for this project is to not use a tax subsidy. That's my goal. And so however operationally and the hundreds of decisions that are made throughout the years, but I'd like the public kind of, we just developed a new schedule that's going to launch next week on our website for the golf course, and it'd be nice to have them log on and know when we're flipping the course as a kind of a standard schedule. If it needs to change, I'll come back and ask, but that's really the intent of today.
So I would move a couple of things. One, that we entrust the decision-making of the reversible timelines to the Parks Department to manage that in the most appropriate way that makes the most sense for the public to understand, but to use and from the cost of running it. That's part one. Part two, that whatever, if there was any confusion relative to how we maintain the entire course, that the entire course gets maintained at the same level of care, regardless of whether it's used or not used. Number three, that as Sarah Hurd just said, and I don't know what the status is, but are we in the process of applying for a new consumptive use permit, or?
Yes, so we are hiring a consultant that's approved by South Florida Water Management to take us through that process.
And that we further acknowledge and support the concept of redoing the consumptive use permit to fit the needs of the golf course as it is today versus it being 20 years ago on a 36-hole course, and whatever that means, Kevin. And the fourth part of that would be, and that may be in the consumptive use permit discussion or it may be a separate issue, but that we give the Parks Department the direction, the authority, the budget to tie in all of the lakes and all of the connections so that there is the option to use Willoughby Creek water. The IQ water is another discussion, I think, relative to the city of Stewart, but that we give ourselves the most flexibility in operating the entire system as possible.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I agree with the first part of what you said, that Parks Department should have some kind of, you should manage the course. Just make it advisable to the public and transparent on how and when. We shouldn't be getting a lot of phone calls on when and what, and nobody knows the answer, so.
We have a motion. Do we have anybody a second or any other input?
I think we're proceeding with these things anyway.
Yeah,
I don't want to
my point of making a motion, there are times where we say things here and it doesn't necessarily get captured in that way. If I left something out or if I added too much, I want Kevin to have the most language support of the board he needs. Not that he didn't hear it, but in writing from a motion that everybody else surrounding this process understands. The district understands what we just did. Anybody else that's got anything to do permitting wise, that's why I would make a motion to do that. Y'all don't want to do it, that's fine.
Commissioner Campy.
Mr. Abate, are you comfortable with Commissioner Smith's motion?
I am.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Oh, Commissioner Heatherington, maybe don't go anywhere.
So we were, while you're sitting there, we were going to have an agenda item come back at the beginning of the year, speaking of the golf course, to talk about the clubhouse, and it's currently being run by Parks and Rec. So that was supposed to come back January, February-ish. When is that agenda item coming before us?
We issued a memo to the board as an update. When we have a 1 year, kind of here's where we wind up financially. And part of the, just to let you know, part of the $809,000, $189,000 of that net profit is at the Hidden Basin Restaurant, your fiscal year to date today. So as we kind of like finish the last few months, as we get in, because we opened in August of last year, I think we need as we said, I think last year during the summers, we need a full year under our belt to understand what we're dealing with. And as we move through summer, we're going to know a lot more about whether or not this is something that we need to outsource. Obviously, that'll be a board decision, but we talked about this last year as having one full year under our belt and then bring it back.
I thought the direction of the board was to come back at the beginning of the year. So maybe in the future, you're right, Commissioner Smith, motions need to be made, but I thought the direction of the board was to come back in the beginning of the year with an agenda item that talks about putting together an RFP and a discussion item for the request for proposal for another vendor to run the clubhouse.
Commissioner, you're correct, and that falls on me, that the staff did request that we wait a year. The memo was issued in March to give you a heads up where we're at. If the board wants the agenda right away, we can do that. But it was my direction to staff to allow them to continue on with just the update to the memo, did not bring it back to the board. So it's the pleasure of the board if you want to put this on the agenda right away, or as the Parks Director suggested, waiting for 1 year.
Mr. Campy.
Thank you for that, Mr. Donaldson. I think, I'm trying to think back to that conversation. If I were to guess, it was 1 year, not the beginning of the year. However, I was with Commissioner Hetherington on the fact that, with all due respect to your first-rate team, there are certain facilities that I think are appropriate that remain in-house from a concession point of view, the swimming, the Sailfish Splash and the beaches. The issue with the golf course, I think, which was the initial recommendation, was that it would go to an outside vendor. And to remind the public, only one person applied to that, and that person was selected, and that situation sort of caved in on itself. But it was a unique situation because I had been to those hitting bays a couple of different times, and if you didn't know the behind the scenes, from the public's point of view, it looked like it was working real well. The food, the quality of the food, and the quality of the service, at least in my perspective, was very good. Of course, they didn't want to pay their rent. They had a lot of things happening behind the scenes. So you had asked to have your staff come in, which they did an excellent job, and I've seen the photographs. It was so disappointing in such a short period of time to go from a brand-new facility with all brand-new equipment and make it look like it was 25 years old. And your team had to go in there and handle all sorts of disgusting things and get it back going. I think there is times where it's, in my opinion, appropriate that we keep certain smaller scale facilities in-house. That particular one, I was not opposed to having go out to the public. But if you want, we have minutes of all of these. We have agendas and video. We could find out specifically what it was. I'm only guessing that it was a year, and I would also be interested in at least having the opportunity for an outside source to bid on the management of that specific portion, because I'll tell you, I've had golf course operators reach out to me and ask me, could they have an opportunity to do that? Now, asking and then actually going through the process of doing it, maybe we end up in the same situation where no one applies to do it or no one is qualified to do it. We've learned some lessons. I think one of the downsides of not getting more qualified people to do it was what your original vision was for a municipal course was quite ingenious. There were not a lot of hitting bays with top tracer golf technology handled at municipal courses. That was much more of a private sector thing. I've been several times while your team has been handling it, and it's well done. So I just think that we owe it to the private sector of our community to at least have an opportunity to compete. Maybe three of us don't agree with that, but that being the case, whatever the date was, at the very least, we should just put something out there to see if there's interest. If there's not, then we know that we have a terrific plan in place to handle it. But I think that particular location lends itself to being handled at the private sector.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, for me, it's very simple. The most important piece for me of this is our constituents that use the course. And I hear time and time again I heard just somebody literally last week at lunch come up to me, didn't know them, and they said, I just want to tell you how fantastic Sailfish Sands is and all aspects of it. And I said, oh, great, thank you very much. So we can say how important it is for someone else to run it or do so, but at the end of the day, it's our constituency that uses it. It is a public golf course, and it is something that represents our brand here in Martin County, and the feedback I get from the user group is that they're very happy with it, and I would, for one, not want to mess with that and go backwards. That's for sure.
Commissioner Hurd.
I agree, Commissioner Smith. I can tell you from experience, it's very, very well run. It's not broken. That doesn't need fixing. It's fixed now.
Go ahead.
I'll just give my final word. First of all, I didn't get a memo to the board, so I guess that didn't land on my desk. But secondly, the constituents who I agree, many of them are happy, they don't get memos to the board either. And when they ask questions, someone needs to have an answer for them just in the name of transparency. Whether it's broken or it's not, it wasn't originally intended. We had a public conversation whether we were going a different direction, and just sweeping it under the rug doesn't do anybody any good. We either talk about it in public and make a decision, or it just doesn't simply disappear. So in all transparency, I think the memo to the board was not the right strategy. It was to have this conversation and let the public know what we were going to do with it.
My recollection is that we were going to run this operation ourselves for a year's time to have historical knowledge of how to design an RFP, what works, what doesn't work, experimenting with our own personnel. I did get the memo, and I did think that in August we were going to have an agenda item. Am I missing something? But anyway, but having the experience that we had, the whole idea was for us to run it, because we're doing it very successfully at the beaches and on a much larger scale for a year period of time. So we've gone through the gravy time, right? So now we got to go through the lean time. So this is going to tell the tale. This is actually the most important time that the county should be running it from now till August, maybe even into September, because that's the lean time. So we've got to know how that we are going to lean ourselves down to survive without an additional, and keeping the profitability, let's call it, of where we're at.
We would collect rent.
I get it, but you're not going to put a high-end restaurant in that's not going to survive during the,
I hear you.
yeah. So anyway, that was yes, sir.
To your point, so last year at this time, we were closed. The old tenant left after Mother's Day, and we were closed all the way through August. So we have no historical knowledge on how well the facility will perform. We're going to learn a lot in 3 months. Like I said, we're up, 189,000 in net revenue, but that can erode away very quickly. We are lean there. We have no full-time employees working there as a strategy to not displace someone if we were to outsource this thing down the road. So we have all contracted staff. So we did as a strategy, and so we will know a lot more after 1 year how the profitability of this facility in conjunction with the golf course.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is a workshop. Review the fiscal year 2025 tentative capital improvement plan. Stephanie Murley and Shelby Baker.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, my name is Shelby Baker. I'm your Budget and CIP Coordinator. Today, I'm going to talk to you about your fiscal year 25 capital improvement plan. Today, during this workshop, we're going to define the capital improvement plan, CIP project origination and process, revenue planning and proposed expenditures, FY25 capital CIP project highlights, FY25 CIP impact to the overall budget, and the board review of the CIP. So what is a capital improvement plan? The CIP is a proposed schedule for the expenditure of funds to maintain, construct, and protect the county's infrastructure for over the next 10-year period. So all revenues in the CIP are both to be required to be available and feasible. With approval of the CIP, the board acknowledges that projects contained in the in the plan represent a reasonable interpretation of the anticipated needs of the county. Projects contained in the first year of the FY25 CIP will be included in this year's FY25 budget. CIP projects originate from a variety of sources, such as master plans, levels of service, advisory boards, and infrastructure needs, and many more. The CIP is an ever-revolving process of identifying needs throughout the county. The capital improvement plan is an important step in the first step in our annual budget process. While most of our FY25 CIP projects is a continuation of previous year's projects, there are many projects worth noting this year, which will be discussed in further detail by the respective departments. Keep your eyes and ears open for details on the following projects, such as parks, we have Wojciech Park. Ecosystems is East Fork Creek Phase 2 STA, coastal stormwater management. Stormwater, we have Hope Heights Outfall. Community development, we have Old Palm City Place and El Camino Trail. In utilities, we have Connect to Protect, Force Main and Grinder Systems. Public buildings, Fire Station Bay Door Replacement Program. In the library, we have Peter and Julie Cummings Library Audiovisual. For the CIP this year, we're looking at a $500,000 increase over fiscal year '24 CIP. This slide represents the ad valorem impact per department, which totals to approximately $517,000 increase over fiscal year '24. Here's a snapshot of projects that are contributing to the FY25 impact. For coastal, we have St. Lucie Inlet Management of $500,000. Public buildings is roughly $104,000 increase over several farms this year. In roads, we have heavy equipment replacement of $100,000. Resurfacing and neighborhood restoration program of $150,000. Library, again, we have the Peter and Julie Cummings audiovisual of $61,000, and then the RFID replacement of $5,000. The county CIP is roughly 13% of the total countywide budget pie, which is still in the preparation and will be brought back to the board in July. And because CIP projects originate typically involve the outlay of substantial funds and numerous sources of revenue are necessary to provide financing over the duration of the project. Most capital funding sources are earmarked for particular purposes and cannot be transferred from one capital improvement plan to another. Such example would be like an enterprise fee-based project, such as airport fees, couldn't be used on another project such as in utilities. Okay, that ends my part of the presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me before we get started on department highlight slides?
Yes. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Smith.
Thanks for that. Just, I think for the public's consumption of all of this. So this starts the CIP process today, right?
Correct.
Walk us through, or whoever, whether either one, whichever one wants to do it. So when we approve the CIP, it'll come back to us in June for our first, July, sorry, for our first budget hearing. And then we will have our second budget hearing in
Mid-July, or September,
September.
Yep.
We'll do our trim notice, will go out in July,
August, the first week of August.
sorry. And that will contain this, the CIP. It'll contain the budget for the rest of the county, correct?
Correct.
And then it moves forward to October for
Fiscal year begin.
fiscal year begin. And then following October, projects will start happening that we approved in the CIP,
Correct.
right? So we will have had 3 hearings, including this one today, right?
Correct.
On
Oh, yeah,
Four.
4. We'll have had 4 public hearings on the adoption of components of our budget,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And so in January, you might have something on the agenda in consent that is a $3 million project that we have fully vetted, discussed if somebody wanted to at one of 4 or all of 4
Correct.
hearings.
Correct.
And so when that item moves forward from the administrator's discretion or your discretion to the administrator and to us, and there is an approval and consent for X amount of $1 million, that's not the first time we would have ever heard of that item.
Correct.
And there was a full disclosure, full transparency, as Commissioner Heatherington uses on a regular basis, thank you very much, of every item.
Correct.
And I know this is sort of very simplistic, but I think there's sometimes a misunderstanding that when something shows up on our agenda, that we never talked about it. So maybe even in the reverse of that. Does anything ever come to us as a capital improvement plan other than something that was an emergency that we didn't know about, that we had to allocate funds to, that was not put in to the program?
Stephanie Murley, Director of OMB. So the only time that occurs is if there is something catastrophic that happens, and you'll see those types of items with an amendment to the CIP on an OMB item or another agenda item in front of the board. Otherwise, these CIP sheets as adopted, and then furthermore within the budget document that you'll receive in July with the budget workshops and then the 2 subsequent public hearings, all of those expenditures are voted upon each time and reviewed.
Are they still sent to the state?
Oh, yes. It's a very stringent process, and we have to meet a lot of what's called truth and millage requirements in order to adopt the budget, which even includes our non-ad valorem funds, such as airport enterprise, utilities, building funds, and such.
Thank you. I know that's
Yep,
probably very elementary for you all, but
it's okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, where's the Brightline station in this CIP?
The Brightline Station funding is still being worked out with the City of Stuart right now, but I plan on bringing that forward with our budget workshops once we have more concrete details on the funding plan.
But shouldn't it be in our CIP, even if we're still working out funding sources? There are plenty of examples in here where it's unfunded, but we have the sheet, and we don't have a sheet, and we know we're going to be building a station.
You can absolutely add it for our budget discussions.
Okay, let's add it today.
well, can I pause there for a second?
Sure.
We're not building it.
We're paying for it. We have grants that I don't know about?
Yeah, so at this time, you're correct. The money would be a transfer to the city or to Brightline directly. But you could include it in your CIP like we have done with DOT projects that are fully funded and built by them. So it could be a CIP project and sort of.
The only nuance I say is that if and Commissioner Hurd, I'm not trying to pick straws here. I'm just saying, if you say we're building a station, we're not building it, to the best of my knowledge. The agreement is either the City of Stuart is contracting with Brightline, or Brightline is contracting with the City of Stuart, or however that relationship works. We are merely funding our piece of it to them, but we have no ownership over the building or over the construction design or anything like that.
Mr. Stokas, you want to elicit a little more detail on where we are with the Brightline station?
I was just kind of hoping to sit here. We are still working in negotiations with the City of Stuart as far as a transition of the property over to the city.
Can you hold on just a minute? Our attorney, which I always, she's got
sorry.
something to say. I'm thinking that maybe she wanted to preempt.
I just wanted to say that as we're dealing not just with our proposal to the, to Brightline, which this board was aware of, and then Brightline's response to us, but also our settlement agreement. But factually, we are not building the station, nor are we going to own the station. We are going to contribute $15 million to Brightline to get and also to agree to convey certain pieces of property to them. That's the theory. We're in the process of amending our settlement agreement, drafting amendments to our settlement agreement, as well as developing a transfer agreement with the City of Stuart. All of those things will come to you, of course, for full discussion and a public hearing.
And Mr. Chair, the only thing I'd like to add is we are working with our county attorney's office. There are reverter clauses that are being built into all the agreements that if the said service suspends, it comes back to the county. And I guess from a staff's perspective, we are treating the $15 million contribution as almost like a reimbursable grant. So they have to perform and build the station. It's not like we're just going to hand the money over. There are many loops or hoops that we will have to jump through. Of course, we're going to come back to you with a separate board item that will lay all this out very systematically and simply. And I am working with our Office of Management and Budget on non-ad valorem sources in order to fund that.
But Brightline's going to construct the station.
Yes, Brightline will construct
I
it. They
think
will
we
have.
had a discussion at a previous board meeting about where we believe that we're following the Boca Raton model, which was where the city of Boca Raton gave money and I believe land, and the Brightline builds its own station. So Brightline's going to build this thing.
Commissioner Hurd.
But we have an obligation, we have an agreement that we are going to fund $15 million toward the station. And that's not in our CIP. I recognize that we hope to receive grants. I hope we receive grants too. But it needs to, the CIP needs to reflect the expenditures that we are expecting to spend this year. And there's nothing in the CIP that talks about spending $15 million for a Brightline station that we've agreed to fund.
Mr. Donaldson.
I'll try to be brief. So if you were to include it in the CIP, it would either be added today or, as we've done on other projects, at the time you do the approval, Stephanie could put the CIP sheet when we actually have the full document together. The second piece is, since the station is not subject to our adequate public facilities ordinance in terms of a level of service item, it's as a planning tool or as the CIP reflecting construction, given the nature of the Brightline station not going to be owned and operated by the county, and we're not going to construct it, it's the pleasure of the board to either include it in the CIP or amend your budget through an item to have the budgeted agreement and to provide the City of Stuart funds. So it's really up to the pleasure of the board whether you add the CIP sheet as a yes or a no, and if you do want to add it, it could be either added as a placeholder today, or we could wait to add it when we do the agenda item that includes all the pertinent agreements.
Commissioner Smith.
My concern over the entire discussion is that the CIP, the budget, is already confusing enough to most people that don't deal with it on a regular day basis. Somebody that's new to the process picks up an approved CIP plan and says, "Oh, there's a station there's a $15 million station in the budget." That must be the county doing that. That's where that, from my lens, that's where that leads us. That we will be criticized for building a station or not, that because it's in the CIP, whether it's understood or it's not. And this conversation will never be watched again. It'll only be somebody picks up the document and looks at the document and goes, "Oh, there's a sheet there for a station. I guess the county's funding and building a station." So, I asked the question about how this CIP process works for a reason, because there are some generalized comments that are relatively raised about CIP not being transparent. It's very transparent. It's very public, and I'm concerned that we do something like this unless it's like incredibly boldly printed on the CIP sheet, built, operated, funding by others, contribution thereof, or something, whatever. But if it's just a CIP sheet that has 15 million in there going towards the station, I don't know that will be helpful to people that don't necessarily follow the document that well.
Commissioner Campy.
Ms. Marley, as our financial budget director, what is your preference? What do you recommend to us? Do we put it in as a placeholder?
I would prefer to just have it on hold until I have all the details to place with our July budget workshop.
Thank you very much.
Moving on.
First department is airport.
Thank you.
Airport's looking at additional $39,000 in additional capital enterprise fund capital needed for this fiscal year. Andrew McBean. We can go through.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Andrew McBean, Airport Director. So as Shelby mentioned, we're looking at additional $39,841 in the fiscal year 25 capital improvement fund. That is coming from the airport fund, which is a fully funded self-enterprise fund. Go to the next one. The current projects that we're doing at the airport are as follows. This is the Airport Operations Center. That project is currently in construction, around 80% complete. The Taxiway Alpha Rehabilitation Project is around 90% complete or 99% complete. The automated weather observation system is around 99% complete as well. We have two projects in design, which is the runway 1230 Hold Bay extension and the Taxi Lane Bravo Rehabilitation Design Project. The upcoming projects that we're looking for in fiscal year 25 would be the Taxiway Alpha Hold Bay extension construction, the Taxi Lane Bravo Rehabilitation construction, the runway 1230 EMAS field strength test, the airfield signage replacement construction, the runway 1230 PAPI replacement design, and some security enhancements at the airport. Are there any questions on the CIP for the airport as presented, Commissioners?
No.
Thank you.
All right. Next is community redevelopment. Pardon?
Do you want tentative approvals after each item, or
However you would like to do so. Yep.
I would move tentative approval of the airport CIP.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Good afternoon. Susan Corres, Manager, Office of Community Development. I'm going to start with what stayed the same in our department. We continue to focus on our infrastructure projects as we have really for the past 7 years and on following our community redevelopment plans to the best of our ability. So what changed? We did get a new employee that was in our fiscal year 2024 budget and approved. Her name is Elise Rafa, and she'll be managing art and public places, historic preservation, and communications for all of our activities, CRA included. We've had some amazing big projects completed very recently. The Rio CRA bioswale is completed. The Rio CRA infill sewer is complete, and Old Palm City's CRA Ripple Stormwater Eco Art project is also complete. So as you can see that we are following the things that are staying the same, which is infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. We're really very intent on getting all of our CRAs sewer and water, and we're very close to that. One of our other larger projects is infill sewer for Rio as well, is complete. So now we are complete in Jensen, Rio, Golden Gate, with a very nice Public Works Utilities County Assist, and hopefully we will be in Old Palm City soon as well. So I like to say that we do infrastructure projects with a twist, little CRA twist. We have also completed art and public places projects, 2 of them this year. One of them are the stainless steel pelican sculptures that you can see on the Manatee Bridge and Gateway down in Port Salerno, and another which are an additional 8 mosaic benches and bike racks in Rio that really do kind of give you a flavor of Rio. Every one of them is different and gives you another feel for what Rio is and what the history there is, etc. Current projects. Palm City Place and Patio. is our latest addition to our beautiful redeveloped map road. The patio is going to serve as our town's, Palm City's, town square. It's adjacent to a beautiful stormwater treatment area, and it's surrounded by walking trails. They'll have lots of community amenities, including a pavilion, a fishing pier, game tables, landscaping, lighting. Construction should be finished this month, and on June 1st, I'd like to invite you all to our ribbon cutting and grand opening, 11 to 2. It promises to be fun. You can come and walk the trails and fish off the pier and eat at a food truck. There might even be, I don't know, a scavenger hunt. And there'll be music as well, provided by the Nouveau Honkies. That's right. Another current project is our Port Salerno CRA Park Drive. It's a small but very pivotal roadway, that kind of feeds the docks, the commercial docks right there. And that's being enhanced with sewer, repaving of the roadway, additional drainage, and additional concrete for trucks so that the commercial endeavors can happen, crosswalks, new park equipment, and we are looking at construction starting in the fall. Project's about 90% designed. Upcoming projects. Thank you.
Welcome.
In Hobe Sound, we have a very large, complex project coming on board. It's the A1A streetscape from Southeast Bridge Road to Southeast Saturn Street. This is going to enhance and I should say expand the downtown. So Bridge Road was one piece, and this is the next piece of that enhancement. And the project will include drainage and stormwater, which are very important elements, not just for Dixie, but also for Post Office Alley, which is included in that. It's going to include parking, lighting, redefined pedestrian spaces, and the renovation of the historic Hobe Sound train station is a piece of that. Thanks to Commissioner Jenkins, it's going to be just a beautiful element in this redevelopment effort. And of course, El Camino. We've been talking about El Camino for a long time. It is out to bid again. So we're all crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. This will be a multimodal trail that will bisect from the north to the south in Golden Gate, CRA, constructed along an unopened county road, which is actually called Camino. So you can expect to see picnic facilities, community garden, exercise stations, and a new soccer field, or I should say a redone soccer field, with dirt mounds for the community's enjoyment. And that's all I have for you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I didn't recall the FTE with the art and public places and the historic preservation board, but what is the scope of that? And have we considered that the Arts Council could run the art and public places if we provided them funding rather than provide another FTE position?
This was a
Maybe we talked about
2024 FTE, so this was approved last year. We've recently hired the person in April. As far as the Martin Arts running Martin County's Art and Public Places program, that's certainly a decision that I will leave to you, all of you. We were given that program when I started in 2017, as well as historic preservation. Both are Martin County programs, not specifically CRA programs.
So what's the scope of that? It's an administrative position to run?
Yes, so they both have boards. There's an Art and Public Places, it's called the Public Art Advisory Committee, Historic Preservation Board, and they both are tasked with, for historic preservation, I think you heard a little bit about that this morning, doing Historic Preservation Month, coordinating all of the activities, running the board, looking at what historic properties may be in the county when they come up. So for example, we get dinged if it comes up in the building department that somebody who has a property that could be deemed historic is coming in to ask for a permit. So then our staff would go out and check that out and see if that was something that maybe we wanted to add to making sure that all of the historic places that we have here in Martin County are taken care of. Not that we do that, but we do work with tourism and with general services on those. Art and Public Places, again, also has a board and funding, and we are tasked with increasing public art for the community's enjoyment.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Port Salerno improvements. There's $1.2 million budgeted. What are the projects?
Look at that. So in Salerno, our 2025 TIF is 1.241. Is that what you're looking at?
Well,
Yes?
it just says that that's going to be the.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those funds have been allocated is half of that has been allocated towards infrastructure partnerships, which is going to go towards sewer. That was recommended by the NAC, approved by the CRA board. And they also added New Monrovia roadway improvements, which is a project that's going to take into account sidewalks, repaving, lighting, and landscaping in the New Monrovia community for $500,000. And then the New Monrovia Park improvements was the last piece of that allocation. And I think that you've seen some of that, Commissioner, the park improvements. We're going to be redoing the basketball court, adding some drainage to it, leveling out some of the ground there, and hopefully doing a shade structure over the playground.
I was mistaken. It's $1.7 million. So that includes 500 for, what's the infrastructure improvements? Is that design? Is it construction?
It's both. We call that line, we call that CIP Infrastructure Partnerships.
Well, I would assume that the water and sewer project is already fully designed since we were out to bid.
Water project that the CRA did was completed last year. The sewer project that I just spoke about on Park Drive is just for the Manatee Peninsula.
But that's not a project that's being funded this year in this CIP, is it?
It will be funded through that line, yes.
Is land acquisition funded?
No. The NAC recommended that the money that we had allotted for that, which was $596,000, be put into the sewer line. So that's where that is now.
Okay.
No additional monies were put into property acquisition.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. I just wanted to also say that the new employee in Ms. Corus's office, when we had a meeting to discuss what kind of programming we were going to do on Map Road, she came forward with a fully worked out plan of exactly what it needed to be. And we just all looked at it, and normally we don't all agree. We just said, yes, this is perfect. And
It's kind of amazing.
and we ran with it, so I give her credit for putting that together. Beyond the scope that Ms. Corus had mentioned, she will obviously fill in wherever she needed to fill in.
Yeah,
And from my perspective, right off the bat, she filled in excellently.
Yeah. She is also responsible, which I did not mention, Commissioner Hetherington, for communications for all three of the programs, CRA, Art and Public Places, and Historic Preservation.
Motion to accept staff's tentative approval of the OCD.
A motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Fire rescue.
Before Mr. Resch begins his presentation on the fire rescue CIP, I would like to request an addition of the CIP sheet that you were given on the dais earlier today called Automated External Defibrillators, or AEDs in parks, for the board's consideration based on the board's request to potentially implement an AED program. Originally, the proposed fire rescue CIP was requested as a decrease of $407. But if the board moves to adopt this AED sheet for the enhanced level of service, it would be an impact of approximately $153,000 to the Fire Rescue MSTU fund. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Tried.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm sorry.
Playing pong with my chairman. I just wanted to speak to the AED. I don't know how the funding would work. I understand that you have to put it somewhere, but I certainly don't want to wait another 6 to 7 or 8 months before we make those purchases. So I don't know if you have to.
If you make a motion today to add this in, I can include that into the budget
For when?
for the July workshop discussion,
When will they be purchased?
FY '25.
I would prefer that you figure out a way to purchase them now and reimburse yourselves in the fall versus waiting. I don't want to be the one. We said this morning, the public has been waiting. Our staff's got it all figured out. If we're waiting, this is a life and death issue. It's not some basic thing that we could do it now or we could wait. None of us wants to be sitting in this room when some family comes forward and says that we had an issue at the park because we didn't have them there. So I think it's urgent, and if you want to fund it into the future, fine, but we need to fund them now, and if you can't, I'll fund the parks that are in my district with my district funds. Or I'll have a fundraiser, but I don't want to wait any longer.
Mr. Collins.
I was just going to suggest if we could at least add the CIP, then we can bring back at a future agenda item under OMB how it could be advanced sooner, if that's the board's pleasure.
Make a motion.
I make a motion that the sheets are brought in and that this conversation is had at our next meeting, which is next week.
Mr. Smith would like to talk about that.
So, first and foremost, I think it would be helpful for the chief to share with us what this thing is going to look like and how it's going to work, because there was a lot of conversation by Commissioner Campy this morning. And so it would be nice for the public, I think, to hear that whatever needed to get worked out got worked out. That would be where I would start. And then what this is reminiscent of, I believe, is when the sheriff came to us mid-year for his body cams request. We were able to do what we needed to do and move funds around to make that happen. But I just think before we jump completely off the edge, that tell us what we're doing. And then I think Ed or I or somebody can make a motion to figure out how out of reserves we get the purchase order done, if that's the right thing to do today, and we can move forward even faster.
For the record, Chad Chanchuli, Fire Chief, Martin County Fire Rescue. So this AED program, if we were going to do any program at all, this is the program to do. It's a phenomenal program. It's advanced in technology. We're getting more of a lifespan out of the AEDs, but it's a collaboration between us, parks, and then also we're going to have fire prevention included on it. But just for the public's perspective to understand how this is going to work, it's going to be out in the open in select parks right now. We're going to run out a pilot program. It's going to be in a secured box. And the beauty of this box is you still have to activate 911. They give you the code of the box, and then they can get access to the actual AED. There's a couple things you need to know about the AED, though, as well. That's why I'm saying this is the best program. We have something that's a dashboard that's actually within Fire Rescue to where we can view all AEDs at the same time. If anything happens with one of these AEDs, we are immediately notified that there's an issue. It could be a dead battery. It could be something where it was vandalized, anything that was missing. We would know to act on it quickly. As far as inspections, we have our fire inspectors that will be able to look at this on a weekly basis to make sure they're running through their inspections. And then parks on the collaboration is more of where they have to do a visual inspection to make sure that the boxes weren't vandalized at all. So the program is phenomenal. The batteries, the pads are 4-year lifespans, which is newer. Usually they have to be replaced every year. And the other beauty about it is the pads themselves. For those that know about the AED market, how they work, you used to have a difference between an adult pad and a pediatric pad. This pad is one and done. So it makes it easier for the end user of this product that they don't have to decide which is the weight, which pad we have to pull out. It's one pad. You follow the prompts on the AED, and then hopefully at the end of this you have success. But 911 is activated during this whole process. So it's a phenomenal program to put together.
So, one thing that's worried me about all of this is that there's an incident on a field, and a resident mm, goes to the box, dials 911, they get the code to open up the box. 911 is going to I assume it activates the AED, right?
No.
Can you screw it up?
So there's a human factor in anything you touch, of
Well,
course,
yeah,
but
I
it is a
appreciate
very,
that. I appreciate that, but if you are doing it, or one of your staff are doing it, or one of the park staff who is fully trained at doing it, I just wonder what happens if a resident gets to it and goes to do the best of intentions, but can you mess up?
this AED, the worst thing that you can do to a patient is shock them in a rhythm they should not be shocked in. So that's the worst case scenario. But the AED won't allow you to do it. So the worst thing they can do is grab the AED and just seize up and just not apply it. Does that make sense?
So
So
if they apply it,
if they apply it, yes.
is there literally like a 5-year-old, you put it here, you put it there, you push it here, and you push a button and you go?
If I put an AED in front of you and I turn that AED on, it walks you through a step-by-step process of how to activate the AED,
But
how to apply the pads,
dislocation
when
and
to
where-
do CPR. And let's just face it, not everyone's going to do perfect CPR because not everyone in the community is trained in CPR. However, any type of CPR compared to no CPR at all is better than nothing. So if we initiate compressions is what saves lives. The AED, it shocks in only certain arrhythmias. It's not every arrhythmia that a patient would be in, but the ones that they are in that requires a shock, that's when an AED does save a life.
So how do you know when they're in that right shock?
The AED, it analyzes the heart, it recognizes the rhythm, and it will tell you when to shock. If what it will do is tell you to pause, it will analyze, and then it'll tell you either continue CPR or shock the patient.
So if you would have taken, or would take the CPR course of my namesake, I can't remember his first name, Mr. Jenkins.
Josh Jenkins.
Josh.
He's an excellent.
Part of that is using this, and it is literally dummy-proof.
Yeah, no,
It really
Get
is.
one from the lobby. We'll try it on Commissioner Smith right now.
Yeah.
Great. No, that's
great.
all this is great. I just think that, I think of like, I think of my mother can't operate her cell phone, right? And so I just think of, and as long as there's no way for someone to activate it if it's not needed to be activated, like if you're telling me you put the pads on the patient and then it does its cycle and it says pause or do not, can you actually hit them with it or it won't let you?
The monitor will not let you shock in a non-shockable rhythm. That's what I'm saying. It can't be done.
Not like paddles you see on TV.
Correct.
Clear. It's not that.
Right.
Somebody just texted in a question.
I want a video.
Okay.
If somebody's, because of a heart monitor or defibrillator, does it tell you, or can you damage a implant defibrillator?
So that's a good question. If they had a
good question.
defibrillator, a heart monitor, if it was working properly, they wouldn't be in the condition that they're in.
Bingo.
So it would override that, and then it would give the shock that's necessary to get them out of the rhythm that they're in.
Okay. So I want to reiterate something that if we do have a funding issue, the parks that are in my district, which I only have 2, you just chill out. I would be more than happy to contribute to the cause out of my district funds. The second thing is Indiantown is in my district, but it's its own municipality. Have we brought this to maybe Taryn's attention? Maybe she wants to pony up to us with this program? Just a thought that, there is, 3 or 4 parks out there that aren't ours. That, anyway,
Yes.
just a
good
thought.
idea.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, you answered everything I needed to want to know and hear, which is great. And so, I would move today that we did what we did with the sheriff's body cams, and that we go to reserves for the 100,000, whatever it is, Stephanie, 104,000.
$153,600.
And that covers all of our parks or portion?
Portion of the
24.
parks.
Portion. 80% of our parks?
Some parks will have more than one unit, that's why it's the number like that. Hal Patioki has more than one.
24 units over 12 parks.
24 over.
But there
12.
was a factor that we added to the estimate of that cost because we weren't sure when this project was going to come to fruition. I think it was about 10 or 15% if we were to wait till October with the way prices are increasing. So we likely will be able to purchase more than 24 with the full 153.
I agree with Ed and others. I don't, this isn't something that should come out of your districts. That's silly because this is a county-wide issue, not a district issue. And for the purpose we're doing it in the first place, if you guys are satisfied with the equipment and the program and the thing, then I wouldn't wait. I would say order today. And I think we give you the approval or the ability to purchase them today or however long it takes to deliver them. I'm assuming you don't get them like on Amazon the next day. You know, I'm sure there's some lead time, but I would.
And then they have to be installed.
Yeah, I mean, I would move that we approve, or Don, unless you have a better source that of reserves, the 152,000.
You could second my motion that I already made.
Did you do that for that?
I did. I tried to.
I don't think I heard that part. I only heard that you were going to fund it all out of your district.
Whatever it takes, we need to get it done right away.
General fund reserves is where the funds would come from, and other than we would.
Replenish them at the October 1 when we do our new budget.
Yes.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm just curious to know what parks.
I saw a list. There's a list. Mr. Abate, have it there? I saw a breakdown.
Hal Patioki Park, Langford,
One second. Hal Patioki more than one.
there's 4 there.
Okay.
Langford Park, 4. Justin Wilson Park, 2. William Doc Myers Park, 2. Indian Riverside Park, 2. Jensen Beach, 2. Stewart Beach, 1. J.B. Reed, 2. Pineapple Park, 2. Timer Powers Park, 1. Wojasac Park, 1. And Jock Layton Park, 1.
What about Charlie Layton Park?
I've been told this is a pilot program.
Lamar Howard Park.
Charlie Layton Park, with your extra money that you got there. There's a boat ramp, very dangerous.
You done?
We got a motion in a
Oh, I'd
second.
like Lamar Howard Park in there if we're going to put them in.
And I would just add
If,
one
if
other-
you'd like, if I can make a suggestion, since there's going to be a little bit of additional funding, which will allow us to buy some more units, let us reevaluate the parks and see where we can put some extra ones, and then we can bring it back to the board and let you know what we have.
But we're still voting today.
Correct.
And if there is a chance of buying in bulk, please at least approach Indiantown to see if they would be wanting to participate in our purchase agreement. Mr.
I know we didn't do an agenda item on this to go more in detail, but part of this isn't just installing it, but it's a routine daily inspection by the Parks Department every day. There's the fire prevention staff dealing with them. It's the training of staff and the 9/11 service being aware when the box gate opens that operate automatically. So it is not just simply the purchase of these things. It's also an operational duty. So that's the reason why we selected the subunit of this is to get a handle on all of the staff resources it will take just to keep these operational on a daily basis. And I think this is a good start of the program. And if we can do it efficiently and if we can expand it throughout all our parks when we get some better data on its maintenance.
Commissioner Smith.
I would go along with the acquisition of the land this morning. The only thing when you redo the analysis of like where you might and might not from comments of board members, if we're going to do 2 at Jensen, I would certainly do 2 at Stewart. Stewart's long enough and wide enough between
I thought she had
the
2 at-
farthest ends of. Stewart was 1 and Jensen was 2. Anyway, however you're going to evaluate it, the southern end of Stewart Beach versus the northern end are like light years apart, so.
Understood.
Commissioner Heatherington aggressively pushed her button, so I will take her now.
I don't know how you're going to explain to some residents that some parks merit an AED, yet when we have soccer fields, and so if I have to pay for it out of my own district funds, the unit itself for Lamar Howard Park, if all these other parks are getting installed, I would prefer that not to have them wonder why they also don't have a unit in their park.
I would agree with you.
Maybe he should come back.
No, let's get it going.
Let's go.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith. Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. It's been a long time. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. But I do think we need to have a conversation more about this at a later date.
I agree.
Shall I continue?
Please.
It depends.
I have to shift my script here. Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Rush, Fire Rescue Administrator. So this project represents our capital improvement plan for fire rescue apparatus replacement, as well as any major fire or medical equipment needs. The apparatus replacement program is based off of 15 years of total service life with 10 years as a frontline truck and 5 years as a backup. There are 2 matrices attached that outline in more specific detail both the replacement programs for the apparatus as well as any of the major fire and medical equipment needs. The primary funding source is the Fire Rescue MSTU. And as you can see, we are not seeking an increase over last year's budget now. Over the years, we've been able to offset the ad valorem impact and absorb any price increases with the help of the Medicaid reimbursement programs that we participate in. However, in the last 2 years, we've seen such significant price increases across the board that's making it increasingly more difficult to do so. For example, the ladder truck that we just recently purchased back in March with the board's permission cost $1.3 million. We purchased the same exact truck 18 months ago for $952,000. That's a 36% increase in just under a year and a half. In addition to price increases, we're experiencing exorbitant build times to build these trucks. What used to be a 1-year process has ballooned to now a 3-year process. So to account for this and to stay on schedule with the replacement program, we will be looking to move forward some purchases in FY26, which will have a temporary impact on ad valorem until FY27 when some of the current active leases that we already have fall off. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I get it.
Move.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington.
Second, just curious, Matt. The year to 3 years, how much do they require up front?
We typically take advantage of prepaying for the trucks because we get somewhere between a 10 to 15% price reduction. So they don't require you to do that, but it behooves us to take advantage of it, considering the.
Any additional break because you're paying 3 years in advance?
No, but that's a good point. We should consider.
Because my assumption is if it's $1.2 million you're dishing out for a truck, right? They're holding on to that money for 2 3/4 years or 2 years and then a year to construct.
Right.
That they're sitting on interest. Thought.
I mean, perhaps some of the way they may look at it too is that there's such a competitive marketplace for these trucks and people are waiting so long that if we ever decide to back out of it, they could probably sell it for a premium over what we prepaid for it. So they may, but it's definitely something to consider for sure. I like that idea. Anything else?
Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. With that, we're going to take our closed captioning break before we go to our next item.
Marcia was really trying.
Okay, welcome back to our commission meeting. Carry on.
Law enforcement with Mr. Sean Donahue.
Hi, good afternoon. Sean Donahue, General Services Director. We're asking for a zero ad valorem impact this year.
Motion to approve.
Just gonna stop. So anyway, maintaining our FARB funding, our fixed asset replacement budget funding, critical to the jail operations. We're still funding some of the long-term projects, the firearms training grounds build-up, the logistics center, and the chiller plant connection for the PSE. We're adding a couple new projects that I'll talk about in the slide later. Current projects, we're finishing up our jail pod renovations later this year. We have one more pod after the one we're going to finish in a few weeks here, and then we'll be done with that project. Jail exterior painting is pretty much done. That's more of a weatherization project, but it did bring it in line with some of the newer colors we're putting on the newer buildings. The boot camp gym and the canine building construction. Canine's almost done. We'll be in substantial completion about next week. The gym's a little bit behind that, but they're both on schedule. And then the Marine Patrol building is well on schedule. That'll be completed later this summer. Law enforcement upcoming projects. We threw the New Monrovia substation in the mix. It needs a little bit of TLC over there. There's some radio upgrades and CCTV upgrades, as well as access management that needs to happen within the jail itself. And then we have an unfunded CIP sheet for the new mental health pod as we get funding and appropriations and things like that for that project. That's it. Any questions?
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Logistics and Operations Center, which is $11 million. What's up with that?
That's been a project we've been working on for quite a while. It is a replacement of the oldest building on that campus, on that complex. It actually was the old, I think it was a packing warehouse. So it's pretty aged. It does need to be replaced. It's certainly seen its time. So replacing it with a similar size building that would encompass the purchasing department for the sheriff's office, as well as warehouse storage and a few other uses.
And those things cost $11 million?
It's about a 20,000 square foot structure, all in all. And that's
And also the firearms training facility, $10 million?
Yeah, currently they are in a portable trailer. That trailer has seen its end of life, and we're replacing that as soon as we possibly can. The plan would be to build about a 10,000 square foot training facility with classrooms, offices, storage, all the components you need for firearms training, as well as bolstering and enhancing the berming and the safety features around the range as the new development comes in.
And the lobby of the jail for $1.2 million because it hasn't been updated for 16 years?
It's actually a combination of projects. It would be the lobby, it would be an attorney inmate visitation room, a body scanner area, and then a secured staff parking lot. And what we'd like to do is master plan that complex to see where we can put that in conjunction with building a new mental health pod. So the first part of this is kind of master planning it, seeing how all these things are going to work together as we start planning this larger construction project. So that lobby is not the 1.2 million, it's a combination of all those.
Okay, it just looks to me like next year we're going to be on the hook for nearly $10 million for two projects. That being the Logistics and Operations Center and the Firearms Training Facility. I don't have any idea where we're going to come up with $10 million for those two facilities next year.
Yeah, the logistics project is over time. There's still several years of funding that we would need to bring together for that.
That's not what it says in the sheet. It says next year we're going to spend $7 million. Thanks.
Commissioner Smith.
Not that I oppose it, but I guess the question with the firearms training facility, there was some discussion a while ago whether or not it was staying there at that current site or we were going to move it. So I guess building a permanent facility means it's staying there.
I was going to ask the same question because I thought it was moving too.
I'll retract my question. You can ask it instead.
No, go ahead. Done. I like
Right. So in order to move the facility, you would need to buy additional property. We had looked at the Lake Point property, which is not eligible, would have to change. So the other conversation with the sheriff's deputies, that they're happy with that location, just it's convenient for their commuting from their office to do the training. And so the preference was to have something similar close to town. The site there can be upgraded to meet the requirements to shield from the adjacent community. So the plan at this point was to continue to look at the existing site, upgrade it to its to be a more modern facility, and do there, as opposed to if you take the cost that are anticipated in this and then added a couple $100,000 an acre for property, you get the idea that that would be the total cost for a firearms facility, of which we don't have any land available at this point in time to move it, nor is the sheriff's staff enamored about moving something further out west. So at this point in time, we're looking to do the design where it's at.
I'm just thinking the fairgrounds would be the perfect spot out in the middle of literally nowhere.
They don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere.
They don't want to be next to Newfield either, so.
No, he's saying they don't want to drive further west.
Well, I'm
every day,
sorry.
all the time.
They're not.
So I'm also assuming that sometime in the future, we'll see another CIP for other improvements to the berm and to other.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yes, that's
There was always the question, I think, when the shooting range lengths were built and the size, that whatever, that there was probably more to come.
So in order to fully utilize the site, it will require, and that's, I think, what we're anticipating is to improve the boundary conditions while also improving the course itself and the classrooms.
So is that part of the classroom funding, or the classroom and then?
No, it's part of the classroom to do,
Yeah, to design the bullet traps and to design the safety features as well as to design the classroom, that's all. It would all be in one project, and we would enhance the funding as it came in and design.
Thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I think that answered. I was under the impression that it was land acquisition in this sheet, but we basically need a berm and a small, modest classroom.
yes.
So they're going to come back with a separate sheet for that.
No, well, it'll be all in the sheet. This sheet will reflect all of what, I think they will come back with,
Indoor shooting facility?
That's what I thought.
it's,
10,000 square foot building. Right?
So
No.
they were shooting.
no, that's for
Berm.
training. Go, Rich.
It's an outdoor shooting facility. It's the indoor training classroom. Classroom, offices, storage, armory.
Okay, even more reason for it not to be there, but okay.
I thought it was a berm that we were either going to buy land to move it or build the berm, and I didn't even realize that we did training on site in the classroom.
They have a trailer there now, and it is a substandard training facility in the fact, in what the sheriff needs to train their folks to have them through their various exercises. The rehabilitating and using the existing site is preferable to moving further out west in my conversations with the sheriff. So we can certainly come back while we're under design and have some further conversations with you, but the idea is that where the location, if it could be made safe the way they want it, they were happy with staying where they're at.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, it said, the sheet says that it's immediately adjacent to Newfield, which of course makes me think about Palmar. And so it sounds to me like as Newfield gets built out, we'll be moving this again at great expense.
It's next to the open space area. It's not next to the housing. It's next to the preserve areas.
Yeah. Have you ever heard about any problems at Trailside and Palomar?
These are sheriff's deputies shooting, not just the general.
Yeah, but there's going to be a lot of shooting.
Oh, no, I asked Commissioner Jenkins, can you hear it from those, will those residents be able to hear it?
Sure.
So, I mean, maybe we need to have this conversation with the sheriff. Or at least his reign, unless his representative is here.
Oh, come on. You can commit it.
His representative is
I think we have to have a would with the sheriff.
I would
because
agree.
It's big money and the
It's not the
future
right-
site might not be ideal.
No.
And you don't have to necessarily move further west. You could move on the same parallel north to south. There's property around. Down onto Citrus along there on the way.
In the industrial.
Someone will donate the property. How many acres is it?
It's about 50. I think some of it's undevelopable, though. It's
They're not using 50, the footprint. So what do you need, a temporary, we're just doing this temporarily, and then we'll bring the representatives in? That's the only group so far we've needed to have further explanation. I'll make a motion to accept the tentative CIP sheets for law enforcement, knowing that we need to bring the sheriff's representatives to explain more succinctly what their future vision is.
Second.
Very good.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries
Conversation.
4-1. Commissioner Hurd dissenting.
Don't speak.
Library.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jen Sells, Library Director. For FY25, we are asking for some additional funding for a project to replace the audiovisual equipment at the Cummings Library in Palm City. Right now, the equipment is about 15 years old and is not accepting the different newer technology that both our presenters for library events and our outside public who books the meeting rooms are requiring. Our current CIP projects, we are actually just starting our Hobestown Public Library Improvement Project. That was from a $1.6 million private donation. We are closing down the library starting tomorrow for about 3 months. That will include planning for an outdoor space as well as interior improvements. We are just because it's so new and making the announcement to the public, we are going to have some events and classes at the Hobestown Civic Center at Zeus Park, as well as an outpost where people can pick up their library holds at the clerk's office in Hobestown. So we're launching on that starting tomorrow. We also are currently working with the vendor for our radio frequency identification system replacement at the Robert Morgade Library. That is our 10-year life cycle replacement program. Upcoming projects in the next few years, we will have a new library branch in the Newfield community, and we are currently in the planning stages for the Hoke Library outdoor space in Jensen Beach. Happy to answer any questions.
And where's that going to be?
What's that?
Where's the outdoor space going to be?
Across the street.
So if you're looking at the entrance to the building, it'll be on the right-hand side in the grassy area. There's a rain garden right to the right, and it'll be closer to the library, not to the strip plaza that's there.
Backside of the building for book drop-off, or the book drops?
Well, no, it's in the front of the building where you park is where the book drops are, and then just to the right back that way.
Okay.
Commissioner Camp.
That thing's going to fit there?
P.
This is just a design potential. We're working right now with the architects to decide
It's going to be
what
an
it'll look like.
octagon-ish, or?
We're thinking about doing, a different design shape.
They can do fights in there,
Can I see
in
it?
the octagon.
Absolutely. We'll include you in the process.
Go. No, I already,
The Newfield Library will be built by the developer of Newfield.
Correct.
Do they have to build it out and put the books and everything else, and then we'll run it? Or they just build you a shell and you have to take it over?
We're still working out the details. They are going to help a little bit with the interior. However, we expect to apply for a state library construction grant to help with some of the funding, as well as our library foundation doing some fundraising. So what we would probably come back to the county for at that time would be staffing and, utilities that would be included in the building.
Is that something that you felt was an appropriate extension of your library system, or is it, because it seems like it's on them?
Yes. Well, if we're going to have a library in our community, I would like it to be part of the Martin County Library System so that we can oversee the operations of it.
Are you in negotiations with them currently?
Yes. Yes. We've met with them multiple times to decide, what the space will look like.
I would love to attend.
Okay.
Thank you. Because I think they're going to owe you some stuff.
Move tentative approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Award-winning Jennifer Salison
Yes,
Library Team.
absolutely.
Award-winning.
Welcome, Parks.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kevin Kerwin, your Deputy Director of the Martin County Parks and Recreation Department, here today to present our FY25 CIP request. As you see, we came in just under last year's request. Highlights are that we're maintaining our funding, our fixed asset replacement budgets, our historic preservation and building, paving equipment, and Wi-Fi. Our boat ramp projects are moving forward. As you all know, we just completed Sandspit Park boat ramps, both of them, and they're open and operating very efficiently. We're continuing with Phase 2 of the Wojciech Park projects, adding the additional futsal and small-sided soccer courts, and then the restrooms and a multipurpose space there. And then, as we discussed earlier today, Phase 4 and 5 of Sailfish Sand Golf Course and the improvements there. Big thing that's going on is we're going to be finishing the boardwalk at Indian Riverside Park and also installing this summer the Joffrey Smith Fountain. Coming in Palm City this fall at the Charlie Layton Park, the park improvements are planned, they're permitted. The boat ramp is planned. We're going to be receiving final permits any day now. I might have them already in my inbox. And that'll be the complete park. We do have a fine grant that we applied for that park. So we'll be making the presentation and we'll hear about that. So with that, are there any questions?
Commissioner Smith.
Just a comment, not that everything the Parks Department doesn't do is fantastic, but if you haven't been to Wojciech Park since all the improvements have been done, it's amazing. I mean, it is a fantastic transformation. I was there a couple months ago, and it was just fabulous. Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our team did a phenomenal job on that. It was a heavy lift, but it is beautiful.
Absolutely wonderful. I'd move tentative approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Public buildings.
Welcome back.
Did you change your outfit?
Come here. Again, Sean Donahue, General Services Director. The public building request has a slight increase for some FARB enhancements. We are continuing with the courthouse and the courthouse office building VAV replacements. That's been a long-term 5-year project. That should finish up just next year with a smaller portion of that. We're maintaining our critical FARB funding across the county, and then we're maintaining some funding for important fire station projects for Exterior.
Pretty sure that's what he's saying.
What's changed, we are starting some funding savings up for a larger courthouse and courthouse office building air conditioning replacement project. This is the larger units on top of the roof, about $6 million total to replace those. They're near their end of life. And then we're adding some VAV replacements in the Blake Library and in the Indiantown Governmental Center. Current projects that we're working on: Hopestown Ocean Rescue in the planning phases, working with the town of Jupiter. We're replacing 2 generators at the hangars at the airport, the Lifestar and the Fire Rescue, or the Sheriff's Office. We are, like Jen was talking about before, we're working on the Hopestown Library remodel project. She explained that well. It's the Stewart Health Department building VAV replacements. That's going to kick off very soon. And then this is the Fire Station 32. That's an example of some of the roof and facade work we need to do on several of our fire stations. That project's complete. Upcoming projects, like I talked about, the courthouse and courthouse office building HVAC unit replacements on the roof. We're working on the design for the fire station doors. That's a multi-year project. We're going to look at all the older buildings and try to replace those with the bifold doors for quicker egress. The supervisors of election has asked for building expansion. Their warehouse space is packed, as you can see in the picture. They need a little bit more room there, and they want to use the existing warehouse space to expand their offices. And then the operations complex is something in planning with capital improvements. Any questions?
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, Fire Station 22 relocation. Have we gotten any developer contributions from any of the rural lifestyle approvals for the funding of this?
Not that I'm aware of, ma'am, no.
How about Western Palm City Fire Station? Is Newfield building a fire station?
I'm not sure.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Does anybody?
There's been discussions about the donation of property. At this point in time, there isn't actually a building construction. There's also been look at working with the chief on the actual best location for a fire station in Western Palm City to serve both the I-95 and Turnpike corridors, which we've talked about earlier, in addition to the growth in Newfield development. So the other locations are along 714 may be a more appropriate location for the fire station. So that's all a future consideration, but we're in the planning stages of it now.
Jim Gordon, Public Works Director. We've looked at the contributions that are going to occur through impact fees through Newfield, and they're going to contribute about $7.5 million toward a new fire station just through their impact fees. But that funding won't come until build out. So, but other development that may occur in that area could also contribute to it through PUD agreements. So.
Do you know what the average new fire station costs these days?
Yeah, the fire rescue has estimated it at about 10 to 11 million.
Does that include land acquisition?
That includes land acquisition. Yep.
Okay, so not nearly enough.
Well, we're getting there.
Commissioner Smith.
Just to the chief and capital side of all this, can we further talk about all that? The theory of where, how, what that happens out there, I just love to have a broader conversation about. And that may also go along with the shooting range conversation too, because a lot of those things start tying together with Newfield and the road that's going to get built there and so on. So anyway, just for conversation point.
Mr. Campy.
If there's a fire station built with somehow conjunction with Newfield, it wouldn't exclusively be for Newfield. It would be a western located fire station that could respond to Western Palm City calls. So it's not, I get 7 million and we'd want to make sure we get the most out of them, but it's not going to be an exclusive Newfield fire station. We've needed one out west for a while. I see the chief. Are you representing the fire department?
For the record, Chad Chancherly, Fire Chief, Martin County Fire Rescue. Just to add to what you said, you're correct. Of
course. Leave it at that.
Western Palm City, that is our next place to build a new fire station. It is definitely in need, just with the responses that we have out there, the emergency calls, our response times. Not only Western Palm City, but we're talking about the encroachment of Indiantown as well. Because if we get the station out there in the right location, we can close that distance out in that out westerly area of Indiantown that we need to address at a point in time. This is the best way to do it, is to push us further west in Palm City. And then over the years, obviously, things progress from there. But as far as our next step, this station, Western Palm City, absolutely, there's a need right now.
The chief has actually attended a number of community meetings that we've had with the people that live out on the grade, and their horrific stories of some horrific stuff that's happened out there. And, you know, we're doing the best we can, but sometimes our response times are, anyway, it's, they are desperate for.
I remember the response times were much quicker when that was my district.
Yeah, but, Mr. Hurd.
And the Indiantown Fire Station 24 replacement, whose responsibility is that? Do we have a contract with Indiantown? What are our responsibilities for public buildings? What kind of contractual agreements do we have? Those kinds of things. Why is this in our CIP?
So currently, Indiantown is essentially, we are providing fire rescue services throughout the village boundaries. We have, the county commissioners have an interlocal agreement with them. Before we would build another station out there, we would revisit that agreement to ensure that the long-term commitment is there if we're where we build that station. Anyway, that's where we're at.
What kind of a contractual agreement do we have
We have an
operationally?
The village, the town is providing an equivalent amount of our taxable value. The MSTU, the fire rescue MSTU, is being essentially applied within the village boundaries. And so they're paying proportionally the same for fire rescue as everybody else.
Okay.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. Again, like we discussed this morning, the dynamic and makeup of Indiantown will dramatically change and increase very soon. So I think, you know, the rural town that our fire rescue was handling out there, I think if you're talking about new community impact, Terra Largo would have a large impact on anything that's happening out there. Staffing, equipment, so that's going to have to be a part of that conversation. But also, if Newfield created a need for additional fire rescue services out west, it doesn't necessarily have to be built on the Newfield property. Because maybe if what the chief said about trying to reach out to the grade and capture some of the northeastern Indiantown area, perhaps some of our other landowners that are out in western Palm City, several of them that I'm familiar with would be more than happy to potentially donate land, knowing that they would then have the fire services closer to their operations as well. So if that's a conversation you'd want to have beyond just within the footprint of Newfield, which might put it a little kind of east, northeast, maybe it needs to be closer to the 95 intersection. And I've been involved in a lot of meetings recently, community and otherwise, where that question came up, where is their Western Palm City Fire Station? And I think some of them might be willing to at least contribute the land, as long as the impact fees from Newfield could be used still to purchase, because they will create an impact.
Don't you think Newfield would want the new fire station on their property?
I understand, but if we're talking about for the whole county, just having it in the heart of their village might not be the best use. If you're on, coming off of Newfield Parkway, north of Martin Highway, and that's where the station is located, but you're trying to get out to the grade, that's not ideally what's best for the county as a whole. I get that it's best for Newfield. if it was on 95 and Martin Highway and any one of those 4 quadrants around that intersection, that's much more centrally located. Still get to Newfield, but then benefit the rest of the county versus us taking their money and saying, look, we're going to make this and it's basically yours. Because it won't be basically theirs. It'll be for everybody.
That's correct. It's going to be for the county, and there's already some conversations taking place regarding what you're speaking on. But it's the need for a Western Palm City station. It happened prior to Newfield.
Whether Newfield exists or not.
Already there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, it has to benefit the community as a whole, not just one development.
Commissioner Smith.
That's why I'd like to chat about this like one-on-one, because there's a lot of dynamics going on with this, whether Newfield is going to be its own sort of town, and there'll be a lot of response calls to Newfield at some point in time. Western Palm City is a whole nother issue, and I don't know how you best do that, but I know when we used to do our station location response time studies, there was, every time we did one of those, there was a logic as to where we would site a station to get to our 8-minute, 7-minute response time. I just happened to go out there yesterday up to County Line on Newfield Boulevard. Parkway. It's a haul up there. I mean, it's further than you think when you're looking at a map. And so, I think if the distance you've got to go on 714, if that new road isn't going to be the feeder road, if it is, then maybe the Sheriff's Shooting Center location makes more sense because that's kind of splitting the thing in half. I don't know, but I'd just love to chat about it on a, where does it sit, where does it site, and how do you get the best response time to build one station that's going to service a whole broad range of
Mr. Don.
I would just suggest we'll bring an item back that looks at, one of the things we look at is we have growth management invested in a growth model kind of, and would layer it in that you can do some predictive call loading. And so there's the art of it is the ideal location versus properties that are available for lowest cost acquisition. And between those two, this board can make the decision.
Yeah, because if you're putting a circle around the station, and that station is close to the northern county line, a lot of the circle would be out of the county.
Correct.
Okay. It's been so long, I don't remember if we had a motion or anything, so.
Or if you were finished.
Yeah.
your
All done?
presentation.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Coastal.
You don't look like Kathy.
She's in New Zealand.
All right, good afternoon. I'm George Zama, I'm the Public Works Deputy Director, and with me is Jim Gorton, Public Works Director. We're going to kind of tag team these next few sections of the CIP that are under the Public Works purview. But before that, I know we're speeding through, but I do want to highlight just a level of grant funding that we are able to attain year in and year out. I think it's super important. So I just really wanted to express my sincere appreciation to our staff for their exceptional work in securing grant funds to expand our critical programs and project goals. We in Public Works, as well as other departments, OMB, administration, we have great pride in leveraging county funding to the greatest extent possible. And staff's dedication, perseverance, in grant writing, and more importantly, project execution and effective grant administration plays a vital role in sustaining successful partnerships with federal, state, grant agencies, and legislatures. And we all know if you spend money well, you usually get more money. So I just wanted to share a few brief statistics. Over the past, I have a lot of data in front of me of a lot of these sections we're going to be talking about. But in the roads budget, over the past 3 years, we were able to obtain, with design and construction, 20 million out of 60 million total funds. So it's about 30% Ecosystems, over the past 3 years, about 31%, averaging of 13 million total funds. Coastal, we're averaging 44% over the past 3 years. Grant funding, both state and federal funding, out of the total funds of around 32 million average. And then our stormwater, which is really, I mean, it's just because of the FEMA and the state DEP resilience grant program, we're at 81% over the past 3 years, grant funds out of the total budget. So overall, Public Works, we're operating over the past 3 years about 39% average of the total projects that you approve is grant funded through the state and federal legislatures and agencies. So I just wanted to say that this is a testament to, the high caliber staff that we have throughout the organization, especially, in Public Works, which I hold dear, and also the board's commitment to supporting our efforts to fulfill these goals. So with that, I'll yield it to Jim.
We're on to coastal. So the coastal program, we're recommending a $500,000 increase from fiscal year 24 to 25. The reason we're asking for that increase, that money was taken out last year at the tail end of the budgeting system to reach our goals. And the reason we need it back is because we have a number of projects that are coming to fruition in the next year. Most notably, we have an inlet management plan that requires us to share in the cost for beach management on Jupiter Island. And there's a large project that's going to happen that we're going to have to contribute to. And then we also have the South Jetty is another project that we're partnering with the U.S. Army Corps, but that's going to be a rather expensive project to protect the south side of the inlet and the north end of Jupiter Island, because right now that jetty is pretty much shot. We've had a couple of hurricanes that really did some damage, and it's been breached in several sections. Also through this program, we're also funding our Resilient Martin program, where we're doing countywide analyses of impacts of sea level rise and climate change. And that's for both the county and our municipality, so we're sharing that information with them. Our current projects, this is a list of several of them that are happening. Bathtub Beach, we just about wrapped up. We just have some planting to do. Otherwise, that has 260,000 cubic yards of material there. Twin Rivers, we have the shoreline project that's kicking off soon. The Manatee Pocket Mooring Field, we just have the upland facility to build, and then the Living Shoreline is getting close to being put out to bid. On the upcoming projects that we have, I touched on a few already. The South Jetty project, 4 Mile Beach Renourishment, which is the 4 miles starting at the north end of Hutchinson Island, running down to just past Stewart Beach. MacArthur Dune Restoration is an important project. There was a lot of damage to that dune in Hurricane Nicole. And what happens anytime we get a large wave event, it actually overtops what's left of the dune, and we have sand and water going across MacArthur Boulevard, and we have to, clean that up to make it safe for motorists. So we need to restore some of that material. It's going to be a joint project, partially funded by the property owners that benefit from it. And then the 96th Street Bulkhead is a facility that we're building so that we can store and launch our artificial reef material from there. Do you have any questions about coastal?
No.
Move to approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd, because she was louder. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, ecosystems, we're staying flat with as far as our ad valorem impact. We have a constant level of funding for our STA water quality improvement projects, as well as our BMAP TMDL compliance projects and our environmentally sensitive land management projects. Current projects, we just wrapped up East Fork Creek STA Phase 1. Phase 2 is currently out to bid. That's the area that's along US 1 near Heritage Ridge. And we also completed Hawks Hammock access improvements, which is part of our environmentally sensitive land management and public access program. It officially provides access to the trail system at Hawks Hammock. And we're working on the modeling and design for construction of a weir in the Cypress Creek floodplain basin in the state park. And we hopefully we'll be able to obtain permits to get that project started soon. And we're also finalizing design for some upcoming projects for the Southwest Prong Manatee Pocket STA in Port Salerno, as well as the Kitchen Creek Eastern Flowway, where we'll convert channelized basin flow into natural wetland systems for the Eastern Flowway, which eventually makes its way into the North Fork of the Loxahatchee River.
And that's one of my pet projects, that we have a property acquisition problem that I'd really like to see this underway before November. Anyway, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So are we changing the water flow through Kitchen Creek?
Making it back to what it was historically.
Right now it's like channelized through ditches, there's a primary ditch, so yes, we're gonna.
We're not taking the peninsula that got built, and we're not removing that and putting, it almost looks like there's lines in there that kind of, we're not changing that.
No.
Okay.
This project's actually further east. You're talking about Kitchen Creek STA?
Yeah.
This is further east of Powerline Road. It's on the other side of Powerline Road.
Okay.
Yeah, pre-development, there were 3 flowways that existed, and as development occurred, it all got channelized into a central flowway that runs down Kitchen Creek Road. And this is going to restore some of that flow and put it back into the eastern flowway. We still have to do the western flowway, but this is going to allow another outlet for that water, and it's also going to rehydrate the wetlands in Jonathan Dickinson State Park. That north section of the JD State Park is so dry, the wetlands are just not healthy because they're not getting the water they historically had.
So that flooding that we had in Hope Heights, we had no water in Cypress Head in the area that Jim was just talking about during all that flooding. Yeah.
So when you all have time, and I don't know if it's you that'll do it or John Mayle that would do it, but can we take some of these and do like an agenda item with pictures and aerials and stuff to show us like what's happening and the progress that's being made? Like the East Fork, if you go back one slide.
Yes.
It's an amazing project, but I'm guessing hundreds of thousands of people drive by it a day and have absolutely no idea what that thing is all about and what it did. And not that everybody watches this, it just would give the opportunity to talk about it, see it, and put it into context. And exactly what Harold's talking about, I think if we could show it, just the progress it's made. Because when we talk about it to people, sometimes they have no idea what we're talking about. But if we can put some more visual to it, would be great.
Yep, we could prepare.
I think Michael Houston has put a lot of his heart and soul into that. He's crawled through the mud there a lot. He'll be a good presenter.
Yes.
Thank you. Tentative approval if you were done with that one.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
This next one is the transit CIP. So what the CIP sheet is for generally is to accumulate funding for capital replacement of the buses. Based on the discussion this morning, the next bus doesn't need to be replaced until '27, so we have some time to make some decisions. But we are accumulating that funding so that we can replace them as they reach their effective service life. There's also a smaller amount of funding that's on the CIP sheet for bus stop construction, but the vast majority of it's for the capital replacement of the buses themselves.
I am absolutely flabbergasted that one of those buses cost almost $500,000. It's crazy.
They too have a long lead time, so you have to order them about a year in advance. Not quite as long as the ladder truck, but same thing with all heavy equipment these days. Is just.
Okay.
Tentative approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Roads.
Okay, roads. We had a constant, what stayed the same? We had a constant level of funding for traffic safety measures, as well as signal maintenance, intersection improvements, and our bridge maintenance program, as well as our annual commitments for the railroad leases. We are requesting an increase in roadway MSTU for our roadway resurfacing program and neighborhood restoration, as well as an increase in our stormwater MSTU for our heavy equipment replacement program. It was at, I think, $600,000 a year for the longest time, and equipment. We just talked about equipment costs, and we have to keep up with our program and upgrade our equipment, as a lot of them are at the end of their life cycle. Some current CIP projects. We're currently underway with the Dixie Highway East Fork Creek Bridge replacement. It's currently a box culvert, a double box culvert that we're replacing with a precast concrete arch bridge. We've replaced, I think, about 7 culverts with this type of bridge structure in the past 6 years or so, and it's very streamlined construction and less of an impact to the public. Really good bang for your buck. So we're currently underway. That road, typically we close roads during bridge construction, but we're keeping the roadway open at all times during construction for this project. Indian Street resurfacing, we're just getting started with that. Folks may have noticed some work out there. It's a two-pronged project. It's not just resurfacing the road, but we're also performing intersection improvements, and we're going to be doing mast arm upgrades for a new traffic alignment. We're adding dual left turn lanes, both eastbound and westbound, in conjunction with the grant resurfacing project. And then we're doing a number of neighborhood restoration projects year in, year out. We just wanted to highlight Coral Gardens. We're wrapping up the drainage phase in there, and we'll be on our way to the next neighborhood in the program. Upcoming projects, we just wanted to highlight just a grant project. A lot of these missing link sidewalks, they go a long way in the community, so we just wanted to highlight we received a TAP grant through the MPO process, and for Avalon Drive and Hibiscus Park. So we're finalizing design with that project, and we'll be constructing that this next fiscal year. And then County Line Road Bridge replacement. That bridge will be scheduled for closure in South County. We have finalized design. I do want to highlight, we received a state appropriation for $3 million, as well as a federal appropriation for $3 million. So we have $6 million for the replacement of that structure. Hopefully, it's almost 100% funding for that bridge. So kudos to staff and our state and federal legislatures for helping us fund that project. And also, we'll be coordinating with the Village of Tequesta. Our emergency, or our fire rescue staff is in coordination with the village, and as well as Palm Beach County in that area. And they'll be actually, they're planning a little satellite station on the west side of the bridge during construction. Any questions?
Just want to note that page 171 is the Bridge Road turn lane on the power line. And just if I don't show up here one day, not to be funny, but not to be funny, it's because I died at this intersection. I'm sure that this condition is repeated throughout the county, but this is, I turn left there 2 times a day, and at least once a week, I'm thinking I'm going to die. So
God forbid that be the case, but I would tell you we will vote to name it after you.
Jenkins Memorial Turn Lane. I love it. I love it. Okay.
Well, maybe not Jenkins, maybe
Thank
just
you.
like Hope Sound.
Okay, all right, good.
District 3.
No, but I'm just saying, and I hope that we had talked about maybe including this in the ecosystem project that we were talking about before.
So the Kitchen Creek Eastern Flowway project, part of the modeling is sizing the pipe culvert that will go under the road at this location. So we are working together to, obviously we want to do the underground first, and we'll incorporate that before we perform the turn lane project, because that'll be a sizable footprint at the intersection.
But I just see this going out 2030 to 2034. So anyway, just saying. Don't mean to be selfish, but I don't want to die.
Or fatalistic.
Yeah.
Got a light.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm looking at the intersection of US 1 and Canner Highway, and it says that there are going to be 3 northbound left turn lanes on Canner at the intersection. Are those 3 new? Is it 1 new?
It's one new, a total of 3 left turn lanes.
And there's going to be an eastbound turn lane go on to Colorado?
There's going to be a right-hand southbound turn lane onto Canner,
Okay, okay.
and that definitely backs up.
I just wanted to bring this up because I don't, so it's not scheduled for construction until 2028. I don't think we can wait that long either at that intersection.
That's a DOT project, so it's a concurrency project, so it's in our CIP, but yes, they understand that we would like to advance that project. It's something we can, the MPO board can also help to expedite by prioritizing it.
Yep.
It's our number 5 priority, so we are prioritizing.
Yep.
No, I gave you up my seat. I have no
You're getting it back.
idea. Not back, I'm getting added.
Yeah.
Me and you, just putting the team back together.
Now I'm on resurfacing and drainage maintenance. We are never going to catch up at this rate. We really need one of these years to prioritize to put about 5 times as much funding in this every year. And lastly, Citrus Boulevard resurfacing is, I'm showing 2027 resurfacing. It's a
Yes.
grant. Whose grant is it?
It's a DOT Small County Outreach
Okay.
Program grant, 75% grant. So yes, that's the timeline. We've started design and we're in the design cycle right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
Side note to that SCOP grant, probably 8 years ago, we asked the legislature with the Small County Coalition to modify the population base number. I think it was 147,000 or something like that. And we got it moved up to like 160,000. I forget exactly what the number of people were, but I know we'll be bumping up against that soon again. And so we rely a lot on that SCOP grant process and SCRAP, right? SCRAP and SCOP?
We're solely SCOP.
Just SCOP.
SCRAP is a smaller threshold, a lower threshold.
Just something that we need to, if we need another 10,000 population, something we need to be thinking about asking the legislature to modify maybe how we fit in that still if we want to rely on that for the future, that's all.
Yeah, we have a close relationship with FDOT District 4 local programming office, and they work with us. We're one of 2 counties that in the district that qualify under that threshold. The other is Indian River, and there are a lot of years that Indian River does not request the funding, and it's upwards of $2 million a year. So they try to equitably distribute every year. And so we like to have projects lined up. So if the money's available, they program it. Because our staff does a good job of administering the grants.
Our numbers hitting the top of that threshold and we were out of the allocation side.
Right.
Altogether.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I rarely find myself saying this, but I think we probably need more funding in the future in this too, because we are going to, with the neighborhood restoration and the resurfacing, we're going to find ourselves in some of these older neighborhoods like Golden Gate that have a lot of unanticipated occurrences, and I don't think that in future years we probably have enough. So I think we need to look really closely and do some of these sampling and make sure that we have enough or contingencies or something, because we might have to program more money in next year.
No more money.
Okay.
Move tentative approval.
Motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
This is the stormwater management is the last CIP for Public Works.
Sorry, I already flipped the page. I thought you were done.
So what stayed the same is constant level of funding for stormwater management and flood control. A lot of that funding is for the repair of drainage facilities and also retrofit of our stormwater treatment areas over time. They do their job. They're like a sponge. They soak up a lot of nutrients, and then you have to remove those nutrients over time. So that a lot of this CIP sheet provides for that maintenance that needs to occur. The other funding is for the Hope Heights drainage improvement. So we were accumulating our match for the project, for the outfall project. We've already designed it. We've already permitted it. It's with FEMA. They're just reviewing the design and cost. And once they approve that, we'll be able to put it out on the street. So with this CIP, we'll be able to accomplish that project.
Can you also, when you do your update with John or whoever, can you bring back that as part of the update? Like, what all happened? How did we, where are we?
Sure.
That would be great to see it.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's there's a lot of engineering that went into that project. If it was easy, we would have done it years ago.
Move tentative approval.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. How are you? Welcome.
Here's Sam Amerson, number one in the number two business.
I was expecting nothing less, Commissioner. Thank you.
I very rarely get to use that line, but whenever I see you, I can.
Got to.
I
Number one in the number two business.
appreciate it. First of all, let me put my glasses on. It's good to be with you and present our request for the CIP for 2025. As you can see, our request is about 2.8 million less than current year. What stayed the same, we've got some recurring rehabilitation projects and replacement projects, such as roadways, resurfacing, pavement repair, some minor capital improvements, tipping floor replacement, and some scale replacements. And what changed, we've got some additional CIP projects. This includes on-site water and wastewater for the facility. As you know, we're on well and septic tank there now. Not the best situation, but as soon as Western Extension is completed, we plan to have that system constructed and ready to connect. We also want to design next year the fuel island replacement, and I'll get to some photographs in a minute to further explain that. And then one of the great largest reductions was we removed the CIP sheet for the public convenience and the single stream recycling adjacent next door to the property we purchased from Waste Management. We've asked for funding this current year, and so we're not requesting any additional funding at this time for that. So a couple of the new projects currently ongoing. We've got construction of a solid waste administration building. That's been designed, permitted. All the architecturals and civil site work has been designed, and we plan on constructing that later this year. I mentioned the transfer station tipping floor replacement and also some general capital improvements to the transfer station building. So I mentioned the on-site water and wastewater system. That's about $735,000 request. We're asking for funding for the design of replacement of the fuel island. As you can see, this fuel island is old school, kind of like me. So I understand what I'm looking at here.
That one's gray also.
Excuse me?
I said that one's gray also.
Yes, it is, absolutely. That was coincidental, by the way. But you can see this is a single steel tanks. This is our diesel and gasoline storage tanks. And this is a secondary containment, this block wall around it. So if we have a leak or a fuel spill while fueling, dispensing fuel, it's contained there. It doesn't run onto the ground. It's concrete slab. But this is old school technology, and we want to replace it with a dual wall tank that's encased in concrete, if you will, a convault tank, hurricane-proof, wind-load-proof. And they also want to put a canopy over the top, so when folks are there filling up a vehicle or a piece of heavy equipment in the rain, they've got some protection, just like at a gas station. And so our increase in request for those three projects totaled about $1 million. And so that does it for solid waste. If there are any questions.
Commissioner
on the
Smith.
Solid waste side.
That was no light, but I'll move tentative approval.
That's what I was, second.
Sorry about that. Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. You'll see a pretty good impact here on our request, about $11,700,000. Some of the projects that stayed the same are recurring septic to sewer projects, ongoing renewal and replacement projects, water and wastewater plant projects. Proposed projects in FY25 do not require any increase in rates. We stick with the current indexing rates, and so we'll be good until 2025. Also allows the department to provide water and wastewater service to customers at a comparable rate. So we're fairly competitive. We completed a rate analysis, rate sufficiency study, I should say, and a 10-year financial outlook. We'll be bringing that to the board in January or February, and looking forward to present that to you. Some of the projects that can you go to the next slide, please? So a couple of the current projects, as you know, we've got force mains for the grinder system. We're continuing with the vacuum sewer systems in a number of neighborhoods, rehabilitation and replacement projects. Those are typically chemical storage tanks, some capital equipment, lift station rehab, and sanitary collection system slip lining and waterproofing of manholes. We also have an ongoing water meter replacement program as well. The Tropical Farms water treatment CO2 facility just came online. We've had some issues with our superficial well field. That's what we use to blend with the RO. We're blending about 80 RO, 20 superficial, and that's because we need the minerals so we can buffer that water and it's not corrosive. We're having some issues with that well field production, and so we put in a CO2 system that will provide the minerals and the CO2 to buffer that RO water. So we'll be going to a little bit higher blend of RO. And the Martin Downs repump station, this is a water system repump station. We've experienced some residual pressure issues in Palm City area, Canopy Creek, and those areas. What we're finding is we have a number of homes that irrigate with potable water. They've got their sprinklers on 5 and 6 days a week, and it's a huge demand. They've got the sprinklers on coming on after midnight, and they'll run till 6 a.m. That's overlapping with the peak when people are getting up in the morning for the peak. And so we're competing with irrigation versus just the regular household use. And so we're addressing that. We're going to be doing some direct mail outs to some of those highest using communities, remind them, send a copy of the recent ordinance that was adopted, and we hope to curtail some of that potable use for irrigation.
Does that ordinance have any teeth?
It does. It will require some assistance from code enforcement, but
All you have to do
absolutely.
is drive around and look at who's got lush green lawns.
Yeah, it's basically overwatered. Our ordinance requires 2 days a week, so we'll be doing some direct mail outs. We'll do some follow-up, knock on doors, leave some door hangers, try to encourage.
Wasn't affecting anything, that would be one thing, but you're actually having to alter your system.
Yes.
To make up for that. I would probably send some folks around.
And real quick, some upcoming projects. We'll continue the small diameter force mains for our grinder system, rehabilitation and replacement, I mentioned, fire hydrant and water main replacements, and we're going to be replacing the bar screen at Dixie Park, adding some disc filters and some iron filter rehabilitations as well. And we're requesting funds, $6 million for a North Plant aquifer well. That's the RO well, the deep well. We'll also be applying for alternative water supply funding for that through the district. We haven't been successful through the district, but we continue to apply. We want to add the third clarifier at the Tropical Farms wastewater treatment facility. It's intended for capacity, but it's not necessarily needed next year for capacity. It's more for operational concerns and gives us a lot more flexibility on taking one offline, having repairs done, and we still have two clarifiers in service at all times. But that will eventually meet concurrency for us.
Sam, can you pause there for a second?
Sure.
The deep well that you just mentioned up in Jensen that we haven't been successful with. How, why, what, where?
That's the RO, that's an RO, additional RO well. We have 4, and that'll be the 5th well.
And it's the fact that we have 4 and they don't want us to have 5?
No. It's just, we just haven't been successful with grant funding for that through the district.
So
But we're,
there are times where we can be helpful, maybe? I didn't know that. I mean, I
Okay.
know that we struggled with a grant request for an additional well. So it would be helpful to share that kind of stuff with us so we
Okay.
can talk to others about it.
thank you.
Doug knows a guy.
But that will be an additional RO well and raw water main to the North Treatment Plant. And I think that's all I have.
Oh.
I didn't mean to rush through, but you were looking a little tired, so
No, it's fine.
I would
Well, you know,
do my part.
the old guy.
It was.
I don't think it was
Like the Red Bull of presentations.
It was the what's the right word for it? The gray fuel tank, and I think that was all part of that. The age and the.
Thank you.
I should have asked you this long before, but we had a neighborhood request information on fire hydrants relative to who owns them, who maintains them, and it's apparently they're their own fire hydrants or something in their neighborhood. Do we have a lot of that?
Not a lot. We typically own, once a subdivision's constructed, we will own and operate the water system, distribution
I thought it was-
system, and the fire hydrants, but if you're talking about off, I think Canner Highway, and is it
Yeah, I was.
South River
This is on the island.
on the island?
I thought it odd that we'd have fire hydrants that we would use if you needed to, that we don't maintain and take care of. Anyway, at some point, if there's a policy direction, like should we know how many of those exist, and what is the liability for that if they fail, if they're not maintained properly?
Yeah, that is an issue. So let me, we'll get with staff and we'll go through and let's pull up, do some summary report of all of those subdivisions where they're private hydrants.
Yeah, if it's 100, that'd be nice to know. If it's 20, that'd be nice to know. If it's 5, that'd be nice to know. I mean, at the scale at which, we have privately maintained fire hydrants, I'm sure the roads are probably private. They're probably not our roads, which would mean that they'd probably take care of it. But nonetheless, if you dial 911, you come hook up to the thing and it doesn't operate, whose fault?
It's an issue.
Whatever. Thanks. Move tenant approval. We already didn't.
Let me get a second.
We have a motion.
Second.
There
We
it
have a
is.
second by Commissioner Hurd, motion by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Correct. That's it?
That's it? Really?
Yes.
Oh, man.
You want to keep going?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Campy.
Thank you. Mr. Donaldson and Ms. Murley, I appreciate the presentation, and I know that there wasn't a lot of additional increases, but what I would like to see potentially over the next couple of months before we meet again on these topics, if there are items that are older, that were sort of placeholders, if there were some things that seemed like a good idea a couple of years ago that have been sort of following along on their 5-year journey on a CIP sheet, if the departments, and I trust our people, if there are items that can be subtracted out. I'd like to see, I know there wasn't a large increase, but there is also the possibility of having a decrease. Keeping the things that are necessary, but if there are some projects that are just like, we're not going to get to it, seemed like an idea, I know that those are probably gone already. But if not, I think it's important, we don't have a crystal ball of what the next 6 months will look like, but that being said, the CIP sheet, I know when we get to budget time, we start to potentially scramble and look for items, and last year, we pulled out the CIP sheet when we were trying to negotiate the budget, and people said, well, this should have been discussed when we were doing the CIP sheets, and it wasn't discussed. So I just wanted to bring up that if there are things that the board, without having the staff, without having a gun to their heads, have the ability to do as a put aside, postponement or elimination, it might be easier to do that with some time to make thoughtful consideration versus we're giving Don a 2-week ultimatum to find $5 million. Just if you could keep that in your head for me, please.
In other words, don't do it on the last day.
Don't do it on the last day.
Okay, we have reached the end of our meeting. 5:05 public comment. I have no public comment sheets. Does anybody want a public comment? Seeing none, how about commissioner comments? None? None? None?
I'm set.
All good, me too. And our next meeting is May 21st, and we are adjourned.